My name is Miles Partain. I go to UCLA and I am on the men's volleyball team. Some of the best pieces of advice I've been given was from our former head coach, now CEO of USA Volleyball, John Spera. He talked a lot about what it means to become a man and the importance of learning to become not only independent yourself, but to become taking care of others. But you can only do that once you take care of yourself. So he always harped on us about that lesson. It was like codependent, independent, and then interdependent were the three phases of kind of growing up into a man. So I've always learned that he's a remarkable visionary leader, and even if his ideas were great, but even if you didn't agree with his ideas, I've heard from people they would still like follow him into battle. So really cool guy. Other coaches as well have taught me a lot about how humans make decisions. Tyler Hildebrand comes to mind. He was a great mentor of mine. He coaches at USC women's indoor volleyball, but he's been at Nebraska and USA Volleyball for Beach, which is where I met him. And he's taught me a lot about the game, strategy. One tidbit that I can remember distinctly from him, he would talk about game theory and faking out the opponent to make them think you're doing one thing to leverage them into doing what you want. And so it was kind of about deception and smoke and mirrors, and that stuck with me, and I implemented a lot of what he taught me into my beach volleyball game. In trainings, I approach it uniquely because I'm very heady, I guess, in how I play. Things need to be, for me, to play at my best and improve quickly, very controlled, kind of like a lab experiment. I really like hitting the volleyball against the wall, like literally just imagine any wall and you have a ball, and that's my playground to get better. In some ways, I prefer that to the actual game. If I had like 1 week to train and it was either playing only on a court with other people or just a wall, it would honestly be quite a toss-up for me. It's so controlled and I can simulate a lot of the game in my head. So with the wall. Otherwise, it's all random and it's hard to find patterns, which I think define high-level athletes is the quick pattern recognition. So that's how I like to train. And as well, I only like playing 3 times a week if I could help it. More than that, my brain gets overloaded. I kind of need time to muddy the water and then let it clear between each practice, or else I just get overloaded. So that's how I approach training right now. Another huge concept I like to think about is the Goldilocks zone. Not too easy or not too hard, but just right. So I used to train probably too hard, and I always thought I wasn't working hard enough, kind of from a perfectionist tendency. And I'm trying to really stay in the Goldilocks zone of just right. And it's interesting. Sometimes you grow faster when you try less. So it's not about working as hard as you can. It's about working right, at least from how I've seen it with me. Challenges definitely have come my way throughout, I guess I'm 23 now, so over the last 23 years. The biggest ones, I would say just learning my strengths, kind of maturing into that. I always wanted to maybe be someone else, and I admired a lot of people, but never fully understood that most of my strengths is in my head. And if I don't value that and go into matches knowing that I'm there to problem solve and think my way to a win, as opposed to being really aggressive or instinctual or like this macho athlete, that's not me. But I always admired those athletes to the point where I'd want to be them, kind of detracting from my own strengths. So that took a long time to realize, and I've kind of only settled on that in the last 4 or so months after the Olympics, and that was huge for me. Through the Olympic qualification process for beach volleyball, there was a lot of me looking up to these great athletes that I've watched my whole life on YouTube that I'm finally able to play. And I would think, oh, I want to play like them. I'd see how they train behind the scenes. I'd see other things. And I really tried to play like them. I just basically just worked too hard. I could see them diving for balls as hard as they can, jumping as high as they can, hitting as hard as they can in practice. And that was never my style. I'd always play kind of in the steady state. It would look like I wasn't trying, but my brain was so active and alive that if my physical took over, it would detract from that. But I didn't realize that, so I toned up the physical at the expense of my mental game, and in trying to emulate people better than me. And it just taught me that you have to know your strengths, and if you want to grow like organically, increment by increment. I was trying to grow like too fast in a way that I kind of got stretch marks or speed wobbles. So that was a huge lesson. The second biggest challenge and then growth that came from that was probably just burnout. I got burnt out on volleyball and honestly kind of on life. January 2023, we had a tournament, low point in I mean, it's crazy that I'm saying this is a low point because we were at Roland Garros in Paris, playing beach volleyball on imported sand into their tennis courts, and I just did not want to be there. And it was even compounded by the fact of how cool the opportunity was. I felt like this ungrateful, entitled person, but I was just burnt out on the sport. I was pushing too hard and I had no fuel left. So that experience lasted like 5 to 7 months. And that was one thing I learned, was to just rest, take time to rejuvenate and clear your mind. For me, my mind, especially. Other people, I think it's more physical. So that was huge for me to learn and just kind of go through and realize that as cool as anything can be, I think there's just a lot of pro athletes who, they're good at what they do, but even though it's what so many people dream to, it doesn't necessarily mean they're enjoying it to the extent, because, perfectionism and so many things. But now I'm in, I'd say, a better place where I'm trying to keep it in perspective, but it took a lot of time, and I don't think I could have learned it by anything other than experience. So burnout was a huge lesson for me, to stay resting and not going too hard, and also to know your strengths in that, because I was redlining my weaknesses and it burned me out. All right, challenge number 3 of my 23-year-old lifespan, I would say, would go to our house. We are from the Palisades. My family, grew up there since I was born, and our house burned down in the Palisades fires. We're doing okay. Our family moved out. We have a lot of great connections from the volleyball world. It's so welcoming, and there's a lot of love in it. So we are relocating to a good spot for now and hoping to rebuild. But that's been really interesting. It kind of jarred me into almost more feeling like I need to be independent, not rely as much on my parents, even though I wouldn't say I totally was, but really realizing that, the material things you have aren't what make life worth it, I guess. That's kind of a lesson I learned from that. A lot of the Olympic gear did survive, though. It was in a fire safe, and the firefighters helped us open that like a week ago. So my story started collegiate-wise at UCLA. I was there from 2020 to 2021, 2021 to 2022, and then 2023 I played like half the season, and then I quit. I left the team to pursue the Olympics for beach volleyball. Indoor was at UCLA. Now this is beach. And now I went back to UCLA because I have one sliver year left of eligibility. So I joined quite late and am going to hopefully play libero on the indoor men's team. They stand to three-peat as a national championship. They won the last 2 years, but the three-peat hasn't happened by any team in like 20 plus years or something. There's been a lot of twos. It's actually been 2-2-2. Now we've won the last 2, but hopefully we can break the streak there. So that's part of the reason I came back, is to help the team do that. So my recruitment process to UCLA was basically how it works for men's indoor volleyball is you just play on these club teams, and then they all aggregate at giant convention centers with hundreds of courts, and then college coaches fly in from different places to watch, judge, and then pick out who they want for their specific team. I guess you wouldn't say pick, they make an offer, and then the athlete has to accept. So John Spera, who was the head coach and now the CEO of USA Volleyball, he was literally coaching the team last year. So he was at a tournament. I think he saw me do a back set, like just a few back sets. I think he was there recruiting for another position, actually, like not my position as a setter, but they were looking for middles. But he saw me do a back set, and then he was like, I want that guy. That's how I heard the story from a player. So that happened my January of my sophomore year. My brother and I together committed to UCLA for the men's indoor team. We have a cool picture of it with the coaches in the Acosta Athletic Center. And yeah, that's how the recruiting process went. Kind of a lot of emails back and forth, sending highlight reels back and forth to different coaches. We had official visits to UC San Diego, or unofficial visits to UC San Diego and Stanford and USC, and then one official visit to UCLA. And then I say we because a lot of this was with my brother, and then we decided to go to UCLA. But I really don't think the recruiting highlight tapes were what was the kicker for specifically us. I think it was just some of that, and then a lot on that tournament for me. So it depends on in-person versus highlight reels. I think in-person, it can't be understated. If you can get a face-to-face with someone, just say hi, hello. I think it really puts you above the other people, because there's so much about culture and accepting your role. And a lot of people from these high schools have huge egos. And the reality is you're probably not going to start your freshman year. And a lot of high schoolers come into the team and they're used to being the best hotshot on their club team, and then they don't start on the men's college team because UCLA is a little bit the poster child of men's volleyball. They don't always win, but they are the most coveted school to be recruited to, I would personally say, and for most people. And I think if you can come in knowing your role, because we need some people just to do specific skills like float serve. They just need to serve. They don't need to set, hit, or pass. We need those people who know their role and really can contribute to a vibrant team culture, engaging the alumni, helping with the recruiting process, because all these official visits, the players are hosting the recruits. It's not really the coaches. So if you, as the recruits out there, if I had any advice for them, I guess, like, position yourself as someone as good as you are. That's obvious. Like, do the highlight tapes, but then talk about how you want to enhance the team culture, embrace your role, whether it's on the bench or starting, because a lot of the people on the bench, naturally, I probably did some of it too, complain, and they detract from the team energy, and it's not a positive circumstance. So from playing indoor volleyball at UCLA and then beach volleyball at the Paris Olympics, the main things I've learned that have made me a better volleyball player is know your strengths, hedge against your weaknesses, I guess, and really amplify your strengths. Secondly, train in the Goldilocks zone. A lot of people are lazy, but a lot of athletes work too hard and are too hard on themselves. So finding that balance in between, I found, is huge. And thirdly, making sure to, in addition to how you train, just live in a balanced way. So there's a lot else to life. There's your sport, but there's also friends, there's God, there's family, and tons of hobbies. The world is full of origami and dancing and duck hunting and all sorts of things that you can enrich your life with. And it's kind of like an investment. Just diversify your stock portfolio so you can be a bit more stable. And with the NIL space, I'm pretty new to it. I was kind of we did have some sponsors as beach volleyball athletes, me and my teammate, but it was in the normal pro athlete sponsor world, I guess. But a lot of it was through connections we personally had. So when I came to the NIL space now, it's really the Wild West to me. I have heard of these crazy basketball, football deals going for millions of dollars and people getting cars, and they're just in high school. It makes sense with the media rights being so expensive for the big sports like basketball and football. But I'm very curious to see how it'll work with the Olympic sports. And I think there's a lot volleyball can offer to the NIL space. It's such a dynamic sport. Like, you maximally jump, you overhead throw as hard as you can. You have to block, there's defense, there's a lot of team camaraderie and strategy going on. And beach volleyball, which is there for the girls, is all of that, but spread across two people. So it's even more mentally taxing from a breadth perspective, and indoor is more specialized. So I think there's a lot there. My hopes for it are to inspire people who want to play volleyball. I know Japanese haiku anime is huge in the world, and I think finding a way to connect to that could be cool, because I know that's probably the biggest fan base of volleyball, is this anime show called Haikyuu. Just they play volleyball and it's animated. And then connecting to the current fans, not only converting non-fans, but connecting to the current ones. I think they want to see the personalities of the players. So I'm hoping with my roommates to do a podcast of just what our men's volleyball team does. We do a lot of scouting, film review, practice, weights. We have team jokes, random We have like fourth meal. They have a lot of food provided to us, and there's just so many things we get to experience that I think could be cool for the fans of the sport and the people already playing to see how it's done at one of the highest levels from an organizational perspective. And then I also want to kind of understand the history of volleyball as well and show that to the world. I think there's a lot. It started in the US, as far as I know, from the YMCA, and that's how volleyball started. And there's been so many greats that have come before us at UCLA that I want to elevate and kind of honor, I guess. And then I also need to know the history of our sport. Like I need to study that a little bit personally. So I think that could be cool on that journey to show it to the NIL space. And then if any brands want to be a part of that, who like volleyball, who want to see it grow, I really think it's undervalued by the attention economy of like social media and influencers and all that. I think it's undervalued. So it's a cool opportunity and space to be in for me. And I hope there can be like strategic brands that want to kind of join that consumer base. I've heard there's like 400 million volleyball players worldwide, and there's a ton of girls and decent amount of guys and a lot of fans and grassroots recreational players across the US. So I do think it's a pretty big market, but it's very, to me, underserved. So there's a lot of opportunity everywhere I've been looking, and I'm trying to figure out where to land on that. So that's a big reason I came back to UCLA. So I made an Instagram post earlier this year about kind of my growth goals for 2025, and they were very unspecific, not SMART goals, like specific or measurable. And they were to grow myself and to grow the volleyball world, and honestly one that I forget, which is embarrassing. But to that end, I am trying to engage the social media world and, number one, inspire the next generation. So I know a lot of kids have a lot of crap on social media. I hope I can be a wholesome outlet that they can see and be inspired by as someone kind of their age. I'm like 23. I'm definitely not high school or middle school or elementary, but to inspire them, it'd be really cool to connect like my personality and the people around me to the fans. I've heard a lot of people say they want to connect to the personality of volleyball players, see what they do behind the scenes. I hope to try and serve that need. And then, like I said before, to really embrace the history of our sport, kind of honor the elders sort of idea. I really think they have so much to offer, so much wisdom, so much experience. I hope there's ways to kind of bring them into this influencer world or just media world and share their stories so that the culture of volleyball can be propagated throughout the US and hopefully the world. So I think a lot of it's in LA. That's where I am now, and I think it's a great place and playground to do all of this, as well as at UCLA. So those are my goals going forward, and I know they're broad because I haven't nailed down super specific things yet, but going for social media, short form reels, podcasts, and then hopefully long form stuff, and camps, clinics, tours across the country, stuff like that. The number one piece of advice I'd give to younger players trying to get a Division I scholarship to play indoor volleyball in college, or any kind of volleyball, even for girls or beach, I would recommend playing as hard as you can in your lane. There's a lot of comparison to other athletes there, especially with social media. Admire others, but don't compare to the point where you negatively view yourself. Everyone's on their own journey, again, with their own strengths. So just play as hard as you can, work as hard as you can. Let people see that. Don't necessarily try to be showing it to them. And then number two, I read this great book called Range by David Epstein. He just talks about how Tiger Woods grew up playing golf like crazy, only golf, only golf, only golf. And then this other guy, I honestly forget, but he had a lot of range. He played a lot of different sports, and then he kind of specialized in middle or high school, and both athletes went on to be great in their sport. So there's multiple ways to do it, but I would really recommend, just kind of for your life and health, play a lot of different sports because there's so much overlap between them. Karate, jiu-jitsu, like the martial arts world, there's the basketball, baseball, football. Baseball has tons of overlap with volleyball. If you start playing volleyball, only volleyball, those people tend to not have good arm swings. They have bad throwing mechanics. Volleyball doesn't really select for that very well. So playing baseball earlier in life or football, just learning how to throw a ball, not contact a ball, but throw a ball, that's really good. And then just enjoying life and moving and being outside, I think, is huge, as opposed to really specializing in your specific sport. I know there's a lot of that going on, and it didn't used to be like that. I've heard, like my dad, I think his generation played multiple. So keep range and specialize. Later, it would be how I would approach it. I've gained so much from other sports, but you need a guide who can show you how it all connects, or else it might seem like they're all isolated. So that's something. It depends on the coach, and then you could be Tiger Woods or the person with range, either person. My name is Miles Partain. I'm with UCLA Men's Indoor Volleyball, and you can check me out at Next Level Prep.